All I know is I had to spend a lot more money on my new computer than I wanted to because I couldn't get video card to build it myself. So, like, that's what bothers me. But if Pantheon ends up with more money from this, hey, great. Welcome to Disparate Worlds, where an irresistible force meets an immovable object. I'm Mox, and this is Sechari, and we're comparing and contrasting the worlds of Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, and Ashes of Creation.
Yes, indeed. Hello, friends. Good to have you with us. Welcome to Disparate Worlds, episode number 16, where we have to grin and bear our terribly bad jokes. Like the one in our title.
Yes. It's all him, not me.
Right. Yeah, you can try to blame me if you want, sir, but I know the whole bear thing you introduced.
I did.
we have to grin and bear it this whole episode. We will explain that here in a minute, so give us a second. For this episode, we wanted to kind of put the shoe on the other foot. Episode 13, we hung out with David Neffel Beach for the crafting and gathering, and actually enjoyed his company. And also Joppa joined us, and we hung out with him to talk about crafting and gathering in Pantheon.
Right.
Then in episode 14, we got to hang out with Nathan Napalm and unpack all of that. So we have done a lot with regard to crafting and gathering in Pantheon. Time for some Ashes of Creation. It's been a while, because I think our episode 15, right, Mox, last week we were just trying to, or it's like 2 weeks ago now, but we were trying to get caught up.
Right.
We just kind of did a, hey, here's the news on everything episode. Right. So what we want to talk about this episode is crafting and gathering in Ashes of Creation. So we'll touch on that, and with the hope that here in the near future we'll be able to do a Worlds episode and compete Pantheon versus the winner, of course, Ashes of Creation, when we get there. So I think it's going to be fun.
You're funny.
Not even a retort. I feel disappointed.
I'm just like laughing at your feeble attempt to say that Ashes is better than Pantheon.
It just floats so naturally. You know,
it's Ashes already, so how could it be better?
It's a phoenix rising from the ashes, sir. I thought you'd have picked that up by now.
I did not. I thought it was just a moldering pile of ashes. But
yes,
I guess
Ashes is the rest of the MMOs out there, and it's rising.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes. First,
yes.
The news.
The news. Pantheon news is first, as always. So March 27th, we had the producer's letter come out for Pantheon, and they talked about Alpha 1. It focused mainly on their checklist for Alpha 1, like the things they need to do in order to get to Alpha 1. And it's a lot. Like, they have a lot of stuff to do. It's not like Alpha 1 is going to happen next week or next month. It's going to, at best, we're looking at late this year. They have a lot of behind-the-scenes coding and networking updates to do. And it's a lot of stuff that we're not going to see. So all of the people that are like, oh, this game's never going to come out, they don't have enough news, things of that nature. There's news. It's just that it's some things that they're not able to like share with us because it's proprietary and has to do with coding and all that. So even Ashes went through that in the dev stream last week. They talked about wanting to show some of that stuff, but they were like, we really don't want to show that stuff because it's proprietary coding. So
nobody wants to see your C++, right?
Exactly.
Like, even the coders are like, dude, this is awesome. No one else wants to see it. That's like that's what the world of a developer.
Exactly. Yeah. And they also mentioned that they brought on board Adam Tehom, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, Mostel, and I'm excited about this. They have somebody specifically assigned to the perception system, which is a big deal to have somebody. It's kind of like they brought Nefel on to deal with the crafting and the economy. They've now brought this guy on, and his focus is perception. I think it's a great thing. Then we had some kerfuffle. There was like some crypto nonsense currency. Like, I don't know. I have no idea what cryptocurrency is.
All right. So we were looking up some terms.
Yes.
Because you were talking with Minus, right, of Pantheon
Yes.
Plus, and
Yeah.
he explained some of this to you.
Yeah.
And we had to Google the terms.
Yeah.
And even then, they didn't make any sense to us.
Yeah. So
Crypto
apparently they're selling unique in-game art, but they're selling it out of game. So basically, it's like, do you want a wallpaper for your computer that you and you alone own? Like, are you willing to pay for it with cryptocurrency, which may or may not increase in value down the road or whatever? I don't know. But it's nonsense to me that people are getting all up in arms about this stuff. That, if it's bringing money into the game, then why is that a bad thing? And Minus was explaining to me that there is some environmental concerns because of the amount of power that these crypto farmers draw with their computers, and is it environmentally friendly? I'm like, oh. All I know is I had to spend a lot more money on my new computer than I wanted to because I couldn't get video card to build it myself. So, like, that's what bothers me. But if Pantheon ends up with more money from this, hey, great.
Yeah. So at the end of this, I still don't understand any of it.
Right.
Even though it's been explained to me, I'm like the stupid kid in class who just can't seem to grasp the lesson. But I do know this. We do have a link that we will have to this fundraising site, that is now out there,
right,
with some of these things, and you can go check this out for yourself.
Exactly.
By the way, if anybody can explain this to us in the comments or cover, inevitably we will probably have stepped on ourselves.
Right. Absolutely.
Please bail us out.
Please give us comments because that helps our algorithm. So we're all for that.
Yes.
All right. So let's see what else we had. There was a development discussion on balance and progression with Sacred that happened also, which was great. So that was just the monthly stream from developers. So Sacred was on. Dave was on there. Ronik. And Joppa and Bendine were all in there, and they were talking about that, the balance and progression stuff, such. It was really cool. It was also great to see Ronik get abused by the devs. Like, it was nearly nonstop. So that was fantastic.
I think we are steadily becoming Ronik fans.
Oh,
like, we're his little guys in the corner. Come on, Rocky, you can do it. Come back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, thankfully, and I say thankfully because I think this is great. They took the time out to give an April Fool's joke, the devs, about hardcore mode in April, in the game, and that it was, it's being added in, and it was fantastic. So check that out. I'll have a link to it as well.
In an MMO, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was awesome.
Sure.
And then J.N. Gerhardt, known as Istelmay, who's one of the lead writers, or is the lead writer, and he was on both the development roundtable and in a two-part interview on Pantheon Plus. We'll have links to those. Check them out as well. If you're a lore buff, they're both great listens.
Absolutely. So Ashes is so much shorter. See, in the Ashes world, we like to just get straight to the point, and it's clean, right?
Clean?
Yes.
You think it was just clean
like
to clean up after those bears?
The bear poop. Yeah, so it's funny, like the day that we published our last episode, so this was, I think, March 18th was the date. There's this tweet now Steven, by the way, is on Twitter. He's just like, hey guys.
Newly
I'm
on Twitter. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Be nice to me, right? So he shows up. He's like, so funny story. We were, I think, probably some Alpha 1 session, right. He was there, and he accidentally spawned 5,000 bears, right? They have this dev mode that he can, spawn some stuff. And I think he increased it by a factor of 100 or something. I mean, it was way more than he intended to do. 5,000 bears. I mean, it was just like a bear herd, just overwhelming everything. Now, so there's some good things that came of this, though. They know that their server can handle all of the behavior and the code, running 5,000 instances of this thing, and all of them acting independently. The server handled it. Right. That was like, the silver lining on this thing. But the bear poop, I imagine, was probably
overwhelming,
unbearable. Yes, you just call it overwhelming. So, Then March 26th, they did the live stream and then posted it to YouTube on the 28th. They did their March development update where they recreated the bear experiment, so we got to actually see him do it again. I don't think he.
It wasn't 5,000 yet. It was like a couple hundred.
Yeah. Well, he tried a little bit. I think he may have gone as high as 1,000.
Yeah.
He may have turned that thing up to 11, but still not 5,000. I can imagine that was just crazy. So
yeah,
that's the news. All right, so we have belabored ourselves with the news enough. We wanted to start this episode about the crafting and gathering in Ashes of Creation and discuss, well, really throw a disclaimer out there first. We realize that we are very late to the game. We only really got started as a YouTube channel here in September of 2020. The game has been in development a long time before that, and I know that in that time there's been a lot of discussion about crafting and gathering. So we realize that we're late to the game, and we've done everything we can to kind of bring ourselves up to speed and research and come, get in the know, and we have looked at everything we can find, but no doubt there are some things that we just don't know that you guys will. So I want to just kind of throw that out there, claim, hey, sort of plead the fifth right up front and make sure that everybody realizes we're just a couple of idiots on YouTube. We should by no means be considered a resource that is even remotely reliable.
Right.
And we're probably going to be wrong with some of this. And if you are right and you know better, you by all means comment, let us know, and we will be happy to get right.
Yep.
In the future. So there that is. We always also throw out some resources as we get started. So we're going to link the wiki pages on some of the more helpful things out there. So there's a page on the artisan classes, gathering, processing, crafting. We'll link all of those things. Scientific nodes as well. Scientific nodes is the one node type that specifically kind of facilitates crafting in a bigger way, I think, than some of the others, although who knows. So we're going to link that as well. And then another thing we're going to link is Narc. There's a YouTube content creator who has been kind of devoting himself entirely to Ashes of Creation and has been working even recently on a very in-depth 1 episode per single crafting profession kind of thing. And it's been an ongoing process. Even this week, there's been things that have come out. So we're going to link the YouTube channel, but then also the artisan overview that Narc put out there. So it's interesting. Like every one of his videos starts with a music video where he's got this character he's created. It's strange.
Yeah, with just like a paper face and that's his thing, which is great. I love when people have a thing. Like we have a thing, we abuse each other.
Yes. Well, yeah, even outside of but never mind. So that's his thing. Like, if the first episode or two, you're like, what on earth am I watching? But you get through it, and then it gets serious, and he gets into the content. By the third or fourth time, you actually kind of enjoy the little weird music video on the front. So it's an acquired taste, I think. Definitely check those resources out.
Yeah. So in Ashes of Creation, there's basically 3 artisan classes, which is gathering, processing, and crafting, and those are further subdivided.
Right. Yeah, so those are the main ones, right? The cores.
Right.
And obviously the gathering are the ones that go out there and then gain these resources. The processors turn them into something useful that the crafters then make into some consumable good, whatever that is, and vent it out there to the economy. So
exactly,
that's the idea.
So to put this into real world type of thing, like you have let's say you have somebody that's growing apples, they then may send it to a company to process that apple puree that then goes out to Jamba Juice in order to make your smoothie.
Sure.
So that's kind of the 3 steps.
Okay, yeah, and that works. And that's kind of what this is. Now, I was quite amazed at how much they have out there already with regard to what these all break down to. So let's start with gathering. Obviously, going out there and getting these resources, right? So what we have is farming and fishing. Everybody kind of knows what those are all about.
Or we think
herbalism.
We do.
Yeah, at least we think we do. That's right. You don't assume anything. Although I think I do have some questions about farming. We'll discuss those in a moment here. Right, herbalism is the third one.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that's just snipping flowers, right?
Right, and gathering plants and maybe mushrooms.
Yeah, that kind of a thing. Lumberjacking, so that's your wood gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Mining, the ores of various kinds, and then taming. This is an interesting one. It's very unique to me. I've not seen this before. But taming. I imagine that's going out into the wilderness, finding a herd of something, and being able to make friends of them.
Or steal their young away.
Right. Yes. Animal kidnapping. Let's call it that. So these are the gathering professions. Now a quick question about farming. What exactly do we mean by farming? I don't know that I've seen much more, besides, hey, you're farming, because there is a list of things out there. The potatoes,
resources, right?
Wheat, right? Cows, chickens. All these things. Well, what kind of farming are we talking about? Because as a farmer, you could be the one producing the beef or the one producing the wheat. Those are very different things, right? And I imagine you can use your freehold to do this farming.
Right.
Or I know you can. That's probably the primary mechanism for you to be able to do that. And how does that relate to it, right? Like, do you really need to specialize in order to be effective? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. And what if like nobody in your circle decides to grow wheat? Does that mean that you can't bake bread, and then therefore you can't make sandwiches?
Right. We're gonna have a lot of hungry people come lunchtime.
Exactly. No Sammys.
In these dungeons. Yeah. So then there's the processing thing, and this is an interesting thing. There's two that we are currently aware of that we were able to see when we went digging for this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One is smelting. That makes sense, because the smelting is going to take everything that the miner comes up with, all that ore, and turn it into ingots of some kind, right? So fair enough.
And potentially find gems as well out of that
We're
ore,
hoping,
I would think.
Right, to be able to extract gems out of ore.
Right.
Or do they? Right? Because there's no gathering profession that we saw that you're a gem finder.
Right.
Usually when you're mining specifically for a kind of gem. So I don't know if a miner is going to do. You're mining for gold and silver and gems and iron, and that's a lot to mine for.
Right.
Okay. But fair enough. So the smelter then, I imagine, makes it into something useful for someone else. And then animal husbandry. This is one that I imagine is probably quite akin to the bioengineer back in Star Wars Galaxy's days that I actually played with some. So I was able to, I was half bioengineer, getting into my story here, half ranger. So the ranger meant I could go out into the wilderness and not be sensed by animals. So I'd go poke him in the butt with a needle and extract some DNA, and then come back to my place and then bioengineer these monsters by splicing their DNA. That was quite a mad science. It was Galaxies.
I don't think there's going to be any DNA splicing going on, but what I think we are going to have is, I have a wolf and I want to make him more tough, so I'm going to breed him with an armadillo.
With a chicken, right? And then you get that chicken, like a wolf chicken combo. Dude, have you ever fought chickens in games?
What is wrong with
you? And I have
man?
Played Assassin's Creed.
We have.
You know those chickens are dead.
I know, there's an elite chicken that I don't think you ever fought.
So I'm just saying, like, breed anything with a chicken and it's going to be a lot more deadly.
I guess so. Yeah, so I think there's going to be some sort of crossbreeding that you can do. So I imagine some things will be compatible and other things won't be compatible. So, but I think that's to be discovered. Like, we're going to be able to discover that sort of stuff. But here lies my question. We have smelting and we have animal husbandry. Does that mean that nobody else has any processing, or are they just not listed, or are they not like, where does that stand?
So because we were not able to find any other listed processing professions. So, lumberjacking, for instance, I mean, you're the guy who chops down the tree.
Right.
And then you've got all these logs that then need to be turned into planks that the carpenter, we'll mention later, has to go use. So right. Or is the carpenter expected to do this right now? Because we didn't see any kind of wood mill.
Right, exactly. Lumber mill, yeah.
A lumber mill, yeah. We didn't see any of that. So smelting, I think with mining we're okay. They've got some place to go. And the taming, I imagine you get the animals and hand them off to an animal husbander.
Right.
What is the I don't know
A
It's
breeder.
not an animal husband. I
It'll
know
be
that's
a-
something
it'll
very
be a-
different.
It would be a breeder, I think.
A breeder, yeah. Okay, so you hand them off to these people. But then, okay, herbalism, that makes sense to me, right? You've got these little things that there's probably not a refining, although maybe there could be. You know,
Yeah.
like how do you refine?
You could
these things
dry
into
herbs. You can
oils?
you can make tinctures. You can make there's lots of things actually you can do with herbs.
Yeah. Now, fishing, I don't think there's anything you can do with fishing to refine fish. You know, farming, it depends. It depends on the resource. I mean, someone's got to process cows into
Right, butchers.
meat. You know, like a butcher kind of a thing.
Right.
Or if you're producing some kind of like olive, you know, who grinds runs the press to make it oil.
Right.
Or the flour mill, right?
Right,
So
or
we,
who skins the animals and tans the hides.
yeah, so at least in our research, we found it very lacking. Like, we're not seeing very much as far as processing is concerned, and that makes me have some questions. So
Right.
we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how that happens. So then anyway, so there's this crafting discipline, right? And of the crafting, we have alchemy,
Right.
which I imagine is potion manufacturing of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
Armor smithing, weaponsmithing, and blacksmithing.
Right.
Now, we had a question about this that we were talking about before the episode. If blacksmithing is not armor smithing and it's not weaponsmithing, what is it?
Well, I think it's going to come down to, like, in the real world, you have farriers, you have armor smiths, and you have weaponsmiths.
So it's a shoe horse
right, but the
shoemaker.
Farriers also will make nails. They will make locks. They can do things like that. So I think the blacksmithing will tie into shipbuilding. It will tie into the siege weapon building. It will tie in probably also to a certain degree. It may even tie into armor and weaponsmithing if they need other components for their items. But and furniture making. Obviously you're going to need like some wrought iron for something. So I think that having them broken out, it forces people down a path.
Yeah, but that makes blacksmithing more of a processing profession. Smelting makes the ingots that a blacksmith then turns into nails that you then hand off to a shipbuilder, right? When the shipbuilder needs to make it. You know, so
Yeah.
it's kind of quasi-crafting. Quasi-processing, I imagine. I don't know.
There might
where
be
that's
some
gonna fit.
processing involved that you're turning something into an item that's used elsewhere, but I think they also will have finished items such as horseshoes and like I said, furniture. Like if you want, like a piece of wrought iron furniture, you'll have that.
Right.
But I do see blacksmithing as being useful in and of itself if it does tie into other things that are used, like for shipbuilding and siege weapon building, especially. Because those are going to be I think it sounds like, and Stephen actually mentioned, I think in their next video update, they are going to show us some ships and shipbuilding. So I don't think they're going to show shipbuilding, but they're going to show us some ships. I think a lot of people are super interested in that. Again, it's not a common thing in the MMO, so I think people will gravitate towards it.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, I just had a question. What exactly is blacksmithing?
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe that armor smithing and weaponsmithing and blacksmithing are all kind of the same thing. It's just what you choose to do with that skill, right? How you apply it. Yep. Who knows? Carpentry will be the next one, so that makes sense. Who's building the furniture? We have player housing on launch.
Yep.
And so we're going to want to all fill our freeholds in our apartments with furniture, and they're going to be the primary makers of that. Cooking. I imagine this is probably going to be the same kind of idea that you eat the sandwich, you get a buff of some kind.
Exactly.
Jewel crafting. Okay, so I'm wondering, is it just all cosmetic, or is there going to be any kind of magical type of properties to this? Who knows?
Right.
How does that relate to scribing, which sounds really cool to me? So is that, or a parchment manufacturer that, or is there some kind of a way that you are able to write, inscriptions that then go into weapon building that may make it, give it some kind of magical effect. I don't know what scribing is, but it just sounds cool.
Right.
Something with writing. Bookmaking, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? Apparently, everybody is supposed to have a book that this is where you put your resources, or you go get a recipe or a schematic in order to make something, and you have a quote unquote book. Does the scribe make that book? I don't know.
Yeah.
Questions to ask. And then of course we've mentioned shipbuilding and then siege weapon building, which is going to be cool. I imagine there's going to be the siege weapon builders are going to be
busy.
Very busy.
Yeah.
Very busy indeed. So
exactly.
So that's the layout of who all, and how all of these things relate to each other. There's just a lot of tidbits out there that are related to all of this. One of the things was tool, for instance. If I am a gatherer, I make my own tool. I don't have, if I need a specific kind of tweezers to get this, I don't have to rely on some blacksmith to make me, a pair of tweezers or a jewel crafter. I make it myself, which I thought is interesting. There's not as much dependence there.
Right.
And it also runs out. It's limited in durability, so I use it up. I consume it, and sometimes I need to recraft the thing. And it may be only in the highest, most elite tiers as I build my way up there that I'm now able to make a pair of tweezers that retains or does not lose durability, or has so much durability it doesn't ever run out, kind of a thing.
Right.
So
yeah. And we also have freehold professions, which are things that specifically will happen in a player's freehold, which we've mentioned would be farming and fishing. But uniquely, you could have the ability to run a tavern.
Right.
I'm not going to your tavern.
Yeah, well, so it's going to... Is it going to be a hole-in-the-wall dive? I imagine there's going to be a lot of people that are going to run taverns.
I probably won't be allowed in your tavern. You'll probably have a height requirement, and I won't meet it.
It's like, I've been banned in how many star systems? I can't go into any of these taverns. So.
Yeah, I
think that's going to be...
Are freeholds, like, non-PvP areas? Like, can you... Or, like, if you're in a freehold, can you, like, get attacked? Like...
Yes, you can. Well,
get your arm cut off, like, while you're sitting at the bar, minding your own business, and somebody comes in with a sword and cuts off your arm.
Yeah. No, they have mentioned that the freeholds are, upon a successful node siege, the freeholds within a node's area then become raidable for X amount of time after the successful node siege. So
so if you're hanging out in a tavern during a siege, you deserve to die. Like, I'll even admit that. Like, as much as I hate PvP.
Well, how much have you been drinking? That's the question. So yeah, I mean, so that's basically all of this in a nutshell. Now, we had observations that as we go, I think it's worth throwing in at this point, because Alpha 1 is like hot on our heels here.
Right.
That there's only about 10% of this, quote unquote, that is going to be available in Alpha 1.
Right.
I think enough for you to be able to be out there and run across resources in the world, pick them up, make a station, refine them into something, but not very much more than that. I think there's going to be a lot of this crafting and gathering system that is not. Now, Alpha 2, in the betas, we'll see a lot more of them, but at least they're limited.
Right.
Mox, you had a reason. You had an observation that we were talking about before we recorded in this regard.
That as far as the 10%, that
yes,
that it's not done yet. That they it's like. I don't know. I think it's really low considering that they're in Alpha 1 and they're only having 10% available. Like, I think that's a low percentage. I think there should be more available. But that being said, you brought up a point that, they don't want people necessarily crafting. Like, that's not the focus of this. Like, maybe when they're in Alpha 2, when they're ready to thoroughly test this, maybe they'll have 50 or 70% available, and it will make more sense. So,
right.
I'm willing to acquiesce to ignorance here, that I don't know, that I'm just going off of frustration that that there's been a lack of this information coming from the devs other than the wiki. Like, I want to see more things in their monthly updates other than the art and combat. I want to see, you know, a little bit more of the systems, the game systems. Like, what, you know, let me see them craft something. Let me see them, what does gathering actually look like out in the world? Like, we haven't seen any of that, and that's
There's been a lot of environments
frustrating.
and a lot of bosses, right? There's been a lot of PvE and PvP combat.
Right.
In probably the last 3 or 4 dev live streams that I've seen. But no real exploration of crafting, you know. I think
or any other like secondary game system. Like, let's see that. Like, let's see a house. Like we haven't seen housing. Like, there's been lots of things that they've talked about and that they're promising, but like we're not seeing, and that worries me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I agree. I would like to see a lot more stuff. You know, at least kind of bringing it back to this episode. With regard to crafting, I think housing would be a lot of good as well. You know, we're seeing a lot of the concept art and things that are developed. Hey, here's what a chair, you know, is going to look like.
Yeah, and it all looks great. But I want to see it in action.
Yeah. What does it actually look like in a room, right? With the lighting and all that stuff.
Exactly. So, you know, again, I'm not criticizing so much as saying to the devs, hey, let's see a little bit more.
Right.
So
yeah, absolutely. And so one thing I did see over and over as we were going through all of this, looking at the wiki and researching, is that Star Wars Galaxies tends to be very close to the model that they're going to implement here. I played Star Wars Galaxies back in the day and loved crafting. It was actually probably one of my favorite aspects of that game. In Star Wars Galaxies, and it's kind of something I'm hoping isn't quite how it's going to be implemented here. All of the crafting professions were really almost like a hand, right? Like there was a core that you had to do. I'm going to learn engineering, and there was certain skills that you had to grind really to achieve. But you had to max out that engineering in order to then specialize after that.
Okay.
So then you could go be a droid engineer or something else, you know, one of the implementations of engineering. They have mentioned here in many places that in order to truly master one of the professions within one of these silos, right? One of these what are they calling them? The artisan class. So I'm a gatherer. Before I can, as a let's say a herbalist, master herbalism, I have to master quote-unquote gathering, right? You have to master your artisan class before you can master the profession in the artisan class.
Right.
Does that mean that's the same model as Galaxies, where you do that core to begin with, and then after that you get into specializing? Is that what that means? Or can I start doing herbalism, you know, and be working on that, but there's just a cap that I can't reach without first getting this prerequisite? That's one of my questions.
Yeah.
They did mention that you can, once you've gotten there, you can master multiple professions within that artisan class. Right. So if I'm a crafter, I can be a blacksmith and a weaponsmith and an armor smith, but I can't do all of them. I can't do everything in a crafting as that specific character. So so I don't know, how is it that you become a legendary crafter? Is it by mastering 5 of them, you know, or do you have to master all of them? You know, like, you can't master all of them really. So what's that maximum? I have some questions I think related to that. You know, is it 3? What's the cap? So how does that work out? Yeah,
the next thing that I remember in going over this stuff is that you can only be a master gatherer or a master processor or a master crafter. You can't master like different trees within that. Yes. So within the branches, you pick one, and that's kind of your thing.
On that character.
Right, on that character, right. Obviously, if you have another character, then that's fine. But it says you can only master it. It doesn't say you can't do the other things. It just says you can only master them. So does that mean that I can, even though I'm a master blacksmith, like, I'm still able to farm, which is good. You know, I can still produce some things and maybe give them off to a master chef that I know, and they can then cook and whatnot. But as far as getting to the top tier, you can only be in the top tier in one of the legs.
Right. It's going to be interesting how complex this all is. This is one of the notes I had here as well.
Yeah.
Just how stinking complex this is. Not necessarily if you are using your freehold to farm, right? Then that's easy. You just, whatever you come up with, you have to caravan it to market, problem solved, or to wherever you have arranged for it to go.
Right.
But now, if you're a crafter and you're trying to make that legendary item, you have to gather all of its ingredients from all over, some of which, are lootable items from bosses, some of which you have to go out there and acquire and gather yourself, or go purchase from other people that have done that work, all of those things.
Right.
And then nodes are restrictive in this regard. So there may be certain recipes that are only craftable in certain nodes.
Right.
Maybe in certain types of nodes.
Yeah.
So you can only make this in a scientific node. Well, you go to a scientific node and you're like, okay, I'm going to make this. Hold on a moment. There's a restriction. It can only be made in a tier 3 node, or tier 4 node, or tier 5 node, right?
Right.
So if the node isn't there yet, you can't do that. It's got to be a node of a specific tier.
Right.
For that specific recipe. Also, there may be items that are used in that recipe that you can only loot off of a specific dragon, say, for instance. And that dragon may only spawn in the node's area of influence when that node is tier 6. And that may never happen on your server.
Right.
Right? So there's all of that complexity you're dealing with. And then once you finally have this, you've got all these gathered resources that you have to ship to the place that you can finally, say there is a scientific node out there. It is of the proper tier. You can get it out there. You can, get all your, resist the raids, people raiding your caravan as you get there, craft all this stuff, and then you got to move it on via caravan back on the market
and hope
where you want to sell it,
and hope that the caravan is not rated, like you said, and your super rare gold dragon nostril gets taken. Then what?
Yeah.
You have no dragon nostrils. You're out of luck.
So I mean, it's complex. I think for the I wonder maybe how much this is going to affect the price. Say you're making this stuff not for yourself but to sell it.
Right.
When you finally have that legendary item that you're going to sell, isn't it going to be a lot more because of all of the tedium that you had to go through to get it to market? Right. That's going to increase the price, right? Like, goodness, it's going to be astronomical, I imagine.
Yeah.
So, there were a couple concerns, Mox. Can I bounce these off you and see what you think?
Please do. I am a wall for you to bounce things off of.
Okay, that's funny. Here we go. So one of my concerns in looking through this was where Steven said, and I want to make sure I get this right, there is a potential for us to quote-unquote limit profession mastery certs to a capped value. Okay? So that makes me think that there's a number of... So in order to master a profession, I have to somehow achieve a cert, right? A certification. Okay, yes. Now you're certified as a master jewelry maker, right?
Okay.
They're going to limit that to a capped value? Does that mean that they only want 100 master jewelry crafters on the server of 8,000 people? Right?
Or it's entirely
or
possible.
1,000 of them, maybe. Right. So that's a question I have, and that worries me.
If that number is low, it becomes part of their model of elitism, like where where the guild leader of the owner of the castle gets a flying mount, but nobody else does.
Yeah, the royal mounts they call them.
Yeah, exactly. So that they have a track record of saying that that's what they want. So it's possible. Like the question is, how many of those certifications are out there? Like, is it a reasonable number? And then will you know in advance, or will you spend months getting to that point?
Or let's say you join this game 2 years after launch.
Oh, you're out of luck.
I'd love to be a master crafter, and you get all the way up there, and you find you're capped because the slots are full. Right. There's a bunch of people that haven't played in 3 months, but they keep logging in their characters so they don't lose the status. Right. And they're not actually actively... I could see how people would abuse that. And I would really hope that there would be systems in place to weed out folks, so that those slots are available for people that actually will
be playing,
use them.
Yeah.
Right, and be playing, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I was reading about, hey, they aren't against the idea of there being one particular legendary item that everybody looks at and goes, oh my goodness, that's the coolest sword I've ever seen.
Right.
There's one on the server, and they kind of like that idea. I kind of like that idea too, but if you're not careful with it.
As long as it's not so far above and beyond the other things that can be attained, I'm okay with that. Like if it's like a legendary in looks versus in stats, I'm okay with that. Like, you have the only flaming sword, but it, okay, it does an extra, little bit of fire damage. Okay, I can live with that. Or it does no fire damage, but it just has the look. It's cosmetic, exactly. Again, I'm okay with that. If it gives you a 10% boost to your DPS, and there's only one of them, I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. But I mean, like, how many of those are there out there? It may not matter, but there may be an ice sword. There may be a poison sword. There may be what I'm saying? If there's a lot of other things out there that kind of, okay, so yours does fire damage, but there's another way to get there.
Yeah, and that's,
some of the elitism kind of worries me. I kind of like the idea that I mean, take it with a mounts, for instance, right? Where you're in a battle, you're fighting with this for a node. There's hundreds of people fighting on both sides around you, and you hear the shriek in the sky, and then over flies this master mount, like a true large dragon, royal mount. To see that in battle and know that's the only guy on the server that has that, I think that's really cool. Here he is showing up to lead the whatever. But I want to be the guy on the mount. How do I do that? That's the question. Because I know I'm going to be the guy in the mud looking up thinking that's cool. So
it's not cool. Elitism is not cool.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I guess it depends on how open it is to those kinds of things. But at least with regard to crafting, I don't want to be a little late to the game, or through some unfortunate circumstance, I wasn't the first one there. Right, and now I'm shut out of being able to really achieve something I've been working hard for, or that I want to work hard for, because everybody else has it, and I now don't. I've drawn the short straw.
Right. I gotcha.
Yeah. So, and then another thing is that they mentioned that was like a kind of a red flag to me is there's a server RNG element with regard to gathering resources. I imagine there's some resources that's going to be out there. They're going to be everywhere. No big deal.
Right.
But there will be veins, right, of mithril, right, of a metal, of some kind of a star metal or something like that. That's very rare and it's needed for that legendary thing. And when you find it, you mine that whole vein. Well, it's left to the server to determine where and when it shows up again, if even. We may never see that mithril vein again. You know what I'm saying? And they actually they mentioned that it may be a once in a lifetime occurrence that ever showed up.
So will there be other things that are unique, like the white deer, or the flower that only blooms on a new moon type of thing? Like will there be other things besides the metals that are unique like that?
That was the example that was out there.
Okay.
I don't doubt that they would extend this to other disciplines. Right?
Okay, makes sense.
That sounds kind of cool to me.
Yeah.
But it's again, we're kind of touching on that exclusivity. It kind of worries me a little bit that there may be some crafting recipes that are maybe just like one-time crafting thing because you only just happen to get lucky enough to have the one resource that will never spawn again at the right time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, if it's limited to things like it's cool. I have the only white cloak in the game. I'm okay with that. But again, if the white cloak gives me immunity to ice damage, and I'm the only person on the server that has that, then I have issues.
Yeah. But I mean, there was a bunch of things that I really liked. A little funny things like, hey, you could be pulling on a flower and it turns out it's actually a monster.
Yes.
Right? There's like monsters in disguise. So
I
you
wonder
never know
if you'll
when
be
you're
forced to keep your tweezers and fight with your tweezers in ashes.
I was watching for that because
Yeah.
you better believe I am stacking I'm building my deck for when we actually compare these two games together. And I'm trying to gather all of the ammo I
All
can
the ammo
find.
you
That
can,
was one I was
Holding in reserve and not mentioning it to me.
You better believe it. Well, I mentioned it now, so I think I've
Well,
kind of
I mentioned it.
Sold myself out.
Yeah.
Very, very, very craftily done, sir.
And you better, start getting your tracking skills honed, because apparently herds will wander throughout the world, and if you're gonna do animal husbandry, you have to learn how to track the herds and find out where they are, what are their migration patterns. That'd be cool if there are, like, I think there's seasons in Ashes, so it'd be cool if, like, if the herd moves from point A to point B in between summer and winter.
Yeah.
So
There's a migration patterns, and you have to learn to follow them around. You know, that's going to, and that kind of drives exploration,
right?
To a degree, too. If you're following the resource wherever that resource happens to migrate,
right?
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's a cool little idea there. One thing that was mentioned was that there are different qualities of the same resource type. So there may be a low-grade iron ore.
Right.
And a mid-grade and a high-grade iron ore. And obviously everyone wants to craft the coolest thing out there that they can. So everyone's after the high-grade iron ore.
Exactly.
So that doesn't mean that the low-grade isn't useful, right? You can get that, and that may be grinding gear. Like. Or
you may need more of the low grade in order to make an item than you do of the high grade.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't smell quite so cleanly. So yeah.
So how they implement it's going to be cool, but at least there is multiple grades of a resource. Right. To me, that was kind of fun because I still remember in Galaxies chasing the highest resource I could find.
Right.
There was research, there was surveying, a lot of things that you have to do just to locate it, and then extracting it was the next challenge after that. So I had a blast doing that. So I'm really hoping that it's going to kind of closely mirror that.
Right.
If you're freehold, you can use it as an extractor in a sense. And I can see how this would make sense, right? If I build my freehold on the side of a river, and I want to be a fisherman, I may be able to build a fishery, right? That may be where the freehold is actually used as the to boost or as the means of fishing. So I thought that was cool, like where you locate your freehold with regard to, especially I think with the gathering professions.
It will be important.
It may help you.
Yeah. And then lastly, the ingredients are kept relevant, which is cool. So what that means is that low-level ingredients are going to be used in higher-tier recipes. So that means that in let's take World of Warcraft, for example, you use copper to build your initial weapons and such. But once you get past bronze, you no longer need copper. So then you're looking for tin,
leveling fodder.
Exactly.
Right,
so
at that point.
Exactly. So it becomes first of all, the market will become flooded with the stuff because everybody has low level stuff, and then when they're done with it, they just put it out there on the market. So it becomes nearly valueless. And number two, people that are just coming in, won't be able to sell their items for as good of a price because it's the market's depressed on the item.
Yeah.
So by using these low level items in higher end making stuff, new people that come into the game 6 months or a year down the road and they're just starting to their gathering will be able to be relevant in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially you're a new gatherer and you're just gathering this early resource. You can actually list it and make some cash as opposed to, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, Mox. Like, there's a lot here. This is one of our longer episodes. We're already like way. Even looking.
Oh my gosh, for 50 minutes. Yeah.
Just now, there's a lot to this, and there's a lot we don't know, and we still have a lot of questions. And these are just initial observations based on what we encountered, which may or may not be correct. So again, we invite you guys, by all means, comment. Let us know what you think. Correct us. Help us out here. We're going to be, I think, working to mature our understanding of this, and obviously devouring any additional thing that Intrepid has to say about this because I really want crafting matters to me in an MMO, and I have not been able to do crafting effectively for a long time because I've seen some bad implementations, and I like, for me, this to be able to relive those glory galaxy days is wonderful. So I'm looking forward to this.
So for this week's Comquest, we're going to be taking inspiration from Stephen Sharif. What should the name of the new Ashes of Creation bear mount be that surely Stephen is planning as we record? What should it be named? We would love to know what your guys' thoughts are. The most unbearable answer will get pinned.
Yes.
Find us on social media at facebook.com/Disparate Worlds, on Twitter at Disparate Worlds, and our website is disparateworlds.org. In addition to our website, please join us on Discord. There will be a link to that in our description below.
Yeah. I'm very dry-mouthed. I think I did the majority of the yakking in this episode. And you rode to glory on my coattails, sir.
Bear up.
Yes, in this bear market. Yes. Dad jokes for all of you poor people out there. Thank you for grinning and bearing it this whole entire stinking episode. We do appreciate your ongoing part of our journey. Definitely drop a comment if you would like to. We would love to hear from you. Do the like thing, that's very important. Do the subscription thing, hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss upcoming episodes. With all of that said, take care of yourselves, friends. Remember always to be immovable in your principles and irresistible in your passion.